Money Astro, welcome to my channel. If this is your first time watching, welcome. If this is not your first time you've been before, then welcome back. Today's topic, we're going to be continuing this discussion regarding light pollution. However, in this video we're going to be talking about how we can deal with it. Firstly, before we get into it, I thought we'd do a quick recap for those people who have not seen the last video. So light pollution is the brightening of the night sky by artificial means. There are various different terminology, there are different types of light pollution I mean. So there is light trespass, which is more to do with stray light. So for example, light from a street light shining in through a window, or an outside light shining it into a neighbour's garden, that kind of thing. So, and then there is what's known as glare, which is basically overpowering, lights. So these are kind of things like this. I go into more detail in the previous video, so if you're interested in that and you haven't already watched it, then please go back and watch that video after you've watched this one, or maybe go and watch that one now and then come back to this one afterwards. It doesn't matter too much. So let's get in. Firstly, you need to know what kind of light pollution you're dealing with. What is the primary light pollution you have? Is it sky glow? So that is where the sky is, depending on the type of light pollution, it could be grey, or it could have an orangey brown colour. So, or if we're talking about, it's basically you can't really see the night sky because of the light surrounding you. So that can be light trespass, or it could be glare could be causing that. So obviously it depends on the type you're dealing with. It's quite, if you're merely dealing with the type of light pollution which is light trespass, well, there are things you can do. For example, you could, if the light is coming from your neighbour's house, you could ask your neighbour if they'd mind turning it off while you're imaging. You could perhaps even invite them over to see what you do, that kind of thing, have a look, if that makes it easier. And you could also try and find a shaded spot in your garden if you have a garden. So, plant some trees or bushes perhaps. Obviously that's going to take time to grow, but those are options you have. You could also try putting a shroud over your telescope to block that stray light as well. So those things you can do to do with that kind of light pollution. If on the other hand we're talking about sky glow, then that's a little bit more complicated, because that's basically, there's nothing you can actually do to reduce that in itself. All you can really do is mitigate it, so make it so as little of that excess light gets through to your sensor on your camera. Be to take more shorter exposures. You take short exposures, you can actually use a higher ISO to get more light in quickly, and with the take shorter exposures. Like I found it perfectly reasonable to take images of Orion, for example, ISO 1600, and taking between 5 and 10 second exposures. And I found that is sufficient to get a fair amount of detail. Not the most detailed image, but you can certainly get a fair bit of detail. And if you add a nebula filter to that, you can get even more. So that is totally doable. And so obviously the more pictures you take, you can do what is known as stacking afterwards. So pre-processing, you can stack those images together to create a master image that will have more detail than individual images, and also that has the advantage that it can remove a lot of noise, so it can potentially even reduce some of that light pollution as well. I wouldn't say it's going to do that much, but it potentially could, depending on how bad it is. So let's now get on to the next area, which would be how do we prevent that light getting to the sensor in the first place. So great, we've worked out how we can, once the light hits the sensor, what we can do. But what can we do to prevent that extra light hitting the sensor in the first place? Because obviously that would be better. That's where filters can come in. So the type of filter you want will depend on the type of camera you have. For example, if you've got a colour camera like a DSLR or a colour dedicated camera, then you'd probably want to look at something what's known as a light pollution filter. Now, there are many ones out there that you can get, so it's best to shop around and find out what people are using in your area, because there are various different ones and some are better than others in different environments. For example, I have, in my area, which is Bottle 7, I have LED lights, majority. There are still some sodium lights around in places, but around me it's all LED, so I no longer get the orangey brown glow. What I get now is a sort of light to mid-grey glow depending on the cloud. So the old type filter that I had used before the lights were switched will no longer work for me. So I looked around on forums and places to find out what would work with white LED lights. And I found people that in my area were recommending using the IDAS LPS-D2, which I will hopefully put a chart in so you can see the spectrum of the areas it blocks. And as you hopefully be able to see, that it blocks pretty well where the actual emissions are from the LED lights. So not completely, but it does block a lot of it. So it blocks a lot of that glow. So that's very good at doing that. However, what I have found with this filter is it's great at blocking light pollution, but it makes everything, it throws your colour balance way out of whack. So you need to create new colour balance on your camera or in software. So because everything comes out a bluey green hue. Now I've been working to get this, and I'm still working on this to actually get this right. I've managed to reduce the hue a fair bit, and I have managed to actually negate it on the camera itself. But unfortunately, because I use an ISA Air Pro to control my camera and everything, and I do it in RAW, it basically totally ignores that white balance on the camera, unfortunately. So I'm still working on how to create a custom white balance that I can actually just set within software itself. So I've been looking around doing that, and I found some interesting articles on how to do that, which I'm still working on. So I won't go into really here, but I might do that in a future video once I've got to the point where I'm comfortable with it. But you might not have that issue depending on the type of filter you use. Like apparently the one I use, it has an issue with a red light, which is why everything has that greeny blue hue. So it's not as sensitive to the red as it could be. So because I don't use a modified camera, it's very weak in the red. So there's a problem, which I may either change the filter or I may modify my camera. I don't know yet. I may even just end up buying a whole new camera because I want to do that anyway. So I might just do that. So back to the actual filters themselves. Now I went off on that tangent. So there are the light pollution filters, but also there are what I would term as dual or triple band filters, they're called, and these are more designed to be used with things like emission nebulae, that kind of thing. But they're very good because unlike with a light pollution filter, they, instead of blocking, basically just blocking those wavelengths for the LED lights or whatever, these actually basically try and block everything but a set wavelengths for specific light, so HA, oxygen, that kind of thing. And so they're really good for that. So the two I've come across so far are both from Epsilon, and that is the L Extreme and the L Extreme and the L. I can't think of what the other one is now. Trust me, there's two. One, and then we move on to what are known as narrowband. Now these, like the dual and triple band filters, basically they basically try and block all but a very specific wavelength. So these are typically usually between 5 and 7 nanometers. So the ones typical you see. And so you'll get one specifically for HA, one for oxygen, etc. So these are good because basically if you introduce like a nebulae, then they're going to basically pretty much ignore all light other than those particular wavelengths. So hopefully if they're working correctly, that's pretty much all the light you'll get through to your sensor. So that is really it. There's probably a lot more I've not covered. If there's something you think I should have covered, please put that in the comments, and I will see that, and I will, if I think it relevant, I may actually do another video on it. So if you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video, and in the meantime, clear skies.